Broadcasting live from Castle Embereth on the plain of Eldraine, this is Tap Tap Concede. Hello, everybody. Graham here this week with...
It's me,
Nelson.
Ben.
Aha.
I wasn't sure. I was like waiting for Nelson to come in, then I'm like, I'll do it. And yeah, that's the Canadian standoff.
I was like, how's this going to work when we're audio only? We have no visual cues. Let's just see what happens. Yes, Nelson is here.
Hi, I'm here, and I am just as Canadian as Ben. We are both equally Canadian.
And Ben is also here.
Hey, how's it going? I'm excited to be on this brand new thing that we're doing from home.
But not so excited that you're not going to be polite.
No, I mean, without manners, what are we?
Barbarians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's no way around it. And today on Tap Tap Concede, we're going to be talking about MagicFest Online, both doing coverage of it and participating in it for various degrees of the three of us. Only one of us was actually was in it. But anyway, before we do that, a reminder that this show, in whatever form it is still brought to you by cardkingdom.com. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR for all of your card needs. I don't know what state their shipping is in, but if they're still doing it, it'll be very fast. And the show continues to be brought to you directly by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you always for letting us continue to do what we do.
Shipping is super weird right now, like in all forms. I ripped the crotch of my favorite pair of pants.
Oh no.
Oh no!
Yeah, and I was like, well, you know what? I don't know why I have a favorite pair of pants, A. And B, why don't I just have several pairs of that exact same of pants? And so I went to like order some on Amazon, and it was like, due to you being a Prime member, you can expect these in April 24th or something like that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
so
that all
not
came down
good.
this week, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I broke down and finally, but this is not about Magic. Broke down, finally got a Nintendo Switch Lite so that
Hey.
Kathleen and I could both play Animal Crossing on our own friggin' islands.
Nice.
And so I've seeded the other Switch, and now I have this Lite because I went on Amazon, and it was like, yeah, it'll free Prime shipping, no problem. I was like, oh, great, okay, cool. Like, yeah, don't worry, we'll get it there by Tuesday, April 28th. Not a worry. You don't even have to pay for it. And I was like, oh, And I knew that day Beej was out doing a bunch of errands and doing like a big grocery shop. And I was like, hey, are you anywhere near where they might sell Switches? And they had they actually still, apparently they're all gone now, but they had shelves full of them at like a Walmart or something. So he managed to grab one for me.
Nice.
Thank you, Based Beach.
Yeah, we can always trust in him.
The whole having a bunch of the same pants, that's a very adult thing that you've done to yourself, Ben. So good for you. Congratulations on achieving that milestone.
Is it like in the movies where like you open up your closet and there's just like 10 pairs of identical pants and then 15 buffalo plaid t-shirts, like or like button shirts? Is it just like,
That's the level I want to get to. Like one of my favorite or my least favorite things about getting up in the morning is like deciding on what to wear. And
Who needs it?
Yeah, I'm very much that kind of person that I don't know. I want to just be able to like get dressed in the dark and be totally fine with like the understanding that I'll look fine, not have to worry about that. And I say get dressed in the dark, but I mean lately I've been sleeping in till like 10, so it's not
Mad
exactly
jelly
dark
over here.
outside. Yeah.
So, I mean, part of the reason for sleeping in late would be staying up late. Heyo, doing coverage.
Good segue.
Because last week on the whole social distancing episode, because we were talking about things that Magic and CFB events were doing going forward to continue as much of the gathering as possible of Magic without being in the same physical space. And one of those was MagicFest Online, which is, basically running a MagicFest style event in terms of, the level of prizes and the sort of kind of tournament structure, but on Magic Online, and that you could enter from anywhere.
Magic Arena.
Magic Arena, pardon me.
It's called
Arena.
MagicFest Online and is not played on Magic
It's
Online.
on Magic Arena. Yeah, MagicFest Arena is what they should have called it, I guess, because there's also stuff happening on MitGo. Anyway,
Yeah.
And yeah, basically what this structure has been is that every day last week, you're hearing this, there was one last week and there's another one this week, so you still have a chance to get in on it. I've gotten very good at doing this whole pitch as part of doing coverage. There's been 4 flights every day firing at 3 a.m., 9 a.m., 3 p.m., and 9 p.m.
Pacific.
Yeah, sorry, all times Pacific. If you go 5-1 or better in one of those flights, then you qualify for, day 2, air quotes, which is a tournament that happens on the weekend. And CFB events on the Channel Fireball Twitch channel have been doing 24-hour coverage in big blocks of time with various content creators and Magic personalities from all around the world.
It's really kind of awesome.
It's been super fun, actually, and all of us have participated in that as well. I was doing it twice last week. I'm doing it a little bit more this week. Last week I got paired up with Matt Sperling, which was super great, actually. I was like, how's this going to go? Because, of course, I don't know Matt personally. I'm just aware that, he's sort of part of his brand as a content creator is being performatively angry at things. If you're unfamiliar, the Sperling's Sick of It article series on Channel Fireball. But he was a delightful co-host, and we had a really great time just like getting to watch fun games of Magic. Because the way that it works is that because everything's decentralized, they encourage all the participants to stream their own games, because otherwise there'd be no content. Because all the commentators are doing is sort of Skyping into a central producer who finds streams that are live and goes, you're watching this now, and we're like, okay, what are we watching? Oh, I guess we're watching this person play this deck, neat. And then just sort of talking about it.
Yeah, and you get like no lead time at all. It's just the producer will be in your ear and just say like, okay, I have the next game ready whenever you guys are done talking about this one. And so like maybe you'll have a few comments at the end of the match, or maybe not, and then boom, you're just in the middle of whatever match they've found for you.
Yeah, and Serge and I, we were doing the late night, I guess we were on the same sort of schedule. Like you were doing 8 to midnight as well, right, Grant?
8 p.m. to midnight, yeah. I think we all were.
Yeah. Oh, we all were. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it was like Serge and I did Wednesday and Friday night. And there were several times, just kind of due to the nature of how it is, where they'd be like, all right, we're gonna cover this game next, and we're like, all right, now we're moving over to this channel, and they just finished the game. All right, so and like just because there was no like formal structure to it, like you would we found a lot of the times just we'd be dropping in near the end of a game and have to kind of like find something else to cover.
I like on the very first night, because Sperling and I were like one of the first pairs, and so we had our producer who was in Ireland, he'd gotten up at 1 a.m., which is, I don't understand how anyone gets up at 1 a.m.
CFB is a powerful crew, turns out.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, it's 4 a.m. here, and like not enough people were streaming it on day one. So he was, at one point he was like, all right, we're just gonna go over to MTG Nerd Girl and watch her ladder until I can find someone who's actually streaming.
Were you with Jeff? Was that who was producing for you? Yeah. That's a very spot on Jeff impression.
Awesome, thank you.
Let's hope Jeff doesn't hear this. I can't agree with Ben on that last one.
No, Jeff was great, and then I had Jordan as well the other night, and he was based out of somewhere on the East Coast of the U.S. Like they're all the producers are all over, and there's like they do like 3 or 4. They do like 3 producer shifts and 5 commentator shifts, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that over the course of the day, and it's so we were all so all of us were on 8 p.m. Pacific to midnight. It was super fun just getting to see all these different all these different decks, and the best part was when the position that I was in was they asked us to do this, and I was like, sounds great. I can host something. I can make words go and do throws and things like that. I don't know a lot about standard. And they were like, that's fine, because we'll put you in the play by play, or the color. We'll put you in whatever. We'll put you in the first seat, and the second seat is the person who like definitely has to know about standard, which is why they paired me with Matt. So I could be like, oh, now they've just cast this. Why do you think that is? And then he'd be able to be like, well, and actually explain it. But whenever we'd encounter a deck that Matt was like, what is this?
You got to be like, well,
what are they doing here? No, there was some decks that we were like, what? Hang on, because it's open deck list. So he'd be like, I have to go look this up. I need to see what the heck this game plan is. I can't remember what it was, but it was something weird that we encountered that we were just like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, Serge and I on the Friday night, which was like we were the bookend of the daily qualifiers before it like shifted over into the weekend. And one of the decks that we were just like, we just want to follow this guy. Was a gentleman who was running Bant Butts. Like it was just the straight up high alert and Whatley low to the ground toughness beatdown.
Yo,
yeah, it was sick to watch, and it was really really interesting because like there was a bunch of times like we were kind of looking at like the different picks that were it, and I was like, I actually have no idea. Like they were running from Eldraine that the mill, the Secret Keeper. And I was like, that's like an interesting one because I mean, it just kind of comes down as like a vanilla 0-4. Why wouldn't you run the Wall of Runes from Ward the Spark, the 0-4 that comes down, lets you scry one? And I was like, racking my brain, and then fortunately there was like somebody from chat who was like also popping into their channel and asking questions too, and it's because Whatley doesn't get rid of the defender clause where High Alert does. So that yeah, and I was like, oh right, and it was like there were those beautiful little moments where after covering like 4 Jeskai Fire decks in a row, it was very refreshing to have a deck that I was like, I actually have no idea why they're making the decisions they are, because I got put in the expert spot, which was like very daunting.
Yeah, because you guys, it was actually because I mentioned I was paired with Matt. Nelson, you were paired with.
I was paired with Allie Warfield, who's now a Rivals competitor. I think she's sort of known for a lot of SCG grinding, and she's played the Pro Tour. She just for the past few years, yeah.
Mythic Meebo on Twitter, is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Meepo, I think. Yeah.
Is it Meebo?
Okay. I thought it was Meebo. Anyway.
She definitely didn't tell me how to say that. I just called her Allie, and she didn't correct me.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then, but Ben was paired with Serge. They were, they were doing a duos game, or what's the vaudeville a partner act? What the heck?
I see what you're trying to say. I don't actually know the word for it.
No, I used to know this.
How old are you, Graham?
I'm 85.
I mean, we've lost all sense of time while being stuck at home. So
I mean, you're allowed to forget the occasional thing at that point. That's
what year is it?
Yeah, but yes, Ben and Serge were casting together.
How did I forget the term double act?
A double act.
Okay, yeah,
you were double acting with Serge. You know what? I tuned in for part of you guys' cast, and it was neat. Like you could tell right away. You two have plenty of rapport. Right, like you're totally comfortable just streaming together because you guys do that every Friday anyway, and you work together a bunch more. Like we're part of this crew together.
Well, yeah, it was kind of funny too because when we were like working with like Jeff, when we worked with him on Friday, he sort of knew like our background of performing. I don't know if Jordan did, who we also worked with, and he was just like, are you guys able to like just kind of vamp for like 2 minutes? Is that too long? And we were like, dog, if you need us to go for like 15 minutes and just talk about nothing, like we can absolutely do that. Like this is kind of what we do for a living. Yeah. So it's just like it's really fun. Like I mean, especially because getting to have the experience when we do the Highlander commentary each year, which has kind of become like this regular thing now. Um, like having that sort of background knowledge made me feel a lot more comfortable doing this. And it was kind of interesting because like I tuned in for a couple of like just like like having as background noise. I'm like as I'm working on things.
I've been watching the stream a bunch this week. I think that the fact that there's 24/7 coverage on the CFBE
It's awesome.
channel is great. Like it's so cool.
But it's like everybody has sort of like a different thing that they brought on, like to bring to commentary. Like there was before one of our shifts, it was like 4 hours of I think it was Huey Jensen and Mashi just talking about old Magic stories, like from like back in the day and whatnot, just like swapping tales and stuff. And it was just, and so there was like that kind of stuff. And then you had like the ones where, you had like LSV doing like very professional, like this is why this person is doing it. And then you had sort of more joking-y kind of things like Serge and I were doing, where we're just like, all right, we've covered this deck for so long. Let's find like the real weird stuff, and like we'd just like dive in there and joke about it. So it was really really fun, just sort of seeing the variety that this whole Magic Fest online thing has brought.
We definitely had a situation where it was like, okay, it's going to take us a sec to do this because the round's just ending because we're going to be waiting for pairings. So I don't know, like it's going to be like 10 minutes. Do you think you two can like talk about standard? And we were both like, fill 10 minutes? Yes.
Yeah.
About standard?
Yeah.
like me and Matt Sperling filling 10 minutes about standard would be me going, and then tell me about this deck.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, the one of the nights the rounds were finishing so fast that like the pairings were going up in like 40 minutes. It was
really, wow.
Yeah, it was just like the round would end after 40 minutes and be like, oh, pairings time.
Man, I would have liked to be a part of those when I was like actually competing, because a lot of the ones there were people like getting like extensions in the rounds that I was playing.
Okay, Jelly.
Absolutely A+ segue, because you were also playing in one of these these flights.
Let me snipe this segue. I haven't had a good segue yet, so I want to ruin everyone else's segues. So you mentioned extensions. I didn't get one on the one opportunity that I had to play this week, which was just before you were casting, I think the Friday Pacific time 3 p.m. one. I thought I was going to get to play, maybe it was like if Kendall gets off work in time or whatever, and then everything looked to be fine. I figured out what deck I wanted to play. I had it all ready, and then I go to register and it's 2:15 and like registration closes like that minute or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I like emailed them. I was like, I don't know why I can't get in or whatever. They're like, yeah, reg is closed. I'm like, oh, boo-hoo. So that's my whole story. You go ahead, Ben.
Oh no, I mean, well, so I mean, like in regards to actually like playing in it, I was very surprised by how well it just sort of all came together. Like I've competed in Twitch Rivals a couple of times, which is kind of like a similar vibe to what this was.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, effectively, all you had to do was just like $25, sign up on the CFB website, register your deck like 10 minutes at minimum, 10 minutes before pairings go up, and you're good to go. Like there's no check-in or anything like that. It's literally just, did you sign up? Good. Your pairings are up. And I imagine there may have been scenarios where like maybe in round one somebody didn't end up showing up for their thing because of whatever reason. But it was super seamless. Like they would put your pairings up on the site, and with the name they had both the registered Discord name and the registered arena name. So if you needed to contact them in Discord, you could, because it's nice because like Discord enables you, as long as you're part of like sharing at least one channel with somebody, you can DM them if you're not like a friend with them. And then you just did a direct challenge, and that was it. And
so the whole thing was done through direct challenges.
Yeah, it was all friendlies. Yeah, it's all friendlies. Probably the finals was today too.
So there's two modes on Arena when you're doing the direct. There's just like the challenge, and then there's the tournament challenge. And the main difference you'll find between those is that in the tournament challenge, the timer is a big part of it. In a direct challenge, you can just go, you can let it go forever. Like there's no rope or anything like that.
Right, but these were tournament challenges.
Yeah. So you on
Yeah.
top of having a rope, you also have like a Mitgo style like chess clock going back and forth.
And there was a round timer as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. There were multiple levels of the whole thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it was really nice because it would be like, I mean, typically what it would usually end up being is like each round would eventually like creep 5 to 8 minutes over like the end of the hour. So by the end of it, like the final round, if it started up at like 9 because there's 6 rounds of Magic, you'd likely be ending up almost starting your final like 6th game almost around like 4 o'clock or something like that. So just due to the nature of either people needing extensions, like I actually had a scenario in not during the qualifier, but when I did qualify for the weekend, my opponent DC'd in game 1.
Oh no.
So we had to actually figure out what was going about that. And it was kind of a bummer. Like I understand exactly why they did the rules thing, and obviously it worked in my favor. But effectively, if your opponent DCs in a game, that's considered a loss, and then they have 5 minutes to reconnect. Otherwise, you win the entire round.
You win the whole match. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you win the whole match. So I ended up winning game 1, and then what you do is when you reconnect, they have to concede the first game, and then you just go straight into game 2 after sideboarding.
Huh.
Yeah,
That
and
allows
then
you to sideboard, right?
yeah, and then I ended up just beating them in the in the second game. So it was like it ended up being maybe like 15 minutes of Magic, which I felt kind of crummy about. But I mean, a win's a win, I guess.
But you brought mono red aggro, so isn't that like 11 more minutes of Magic than you were even expecting to play in a match?
I mean, a little bit, right? Mono red is in such an interesting spot where it's like it can absolutely just crush somebody on turn 4 with like the perfect hand and no interaction. But the current iteration of mono red sort of plays a little bit better into the long game, especially after sideboarding as well. Because it's not burn anymore. Like I don't really categorize it as burn because most of the better versions of the deck are not actually just running just straight up burn spells. Like a lot of them have gotten rid of shock. I haven't seen a deck run like Skewer the Critics in forever. It's mainly like 30, 31, 32 creatures, 4 copies of Light Up the Stage, 4 copies of Embercleave, and go. And different versions are obviously doing different things. A lot of people are just actually putting 2 copies of Tybalt in the main board. Just
Huh.
He's a
yeah,
creature. He's a 3-mana 1/1, right?
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I mean the big thing about it, it's mainly just because Bant and a lot of life gain in general is just so prevalent right now in the current standard. So it's just like kind of better to instead of the like experimental frenzy style kind of end games that you'll see, it's more of a low to the ground but like consistent beating kind of style decks.
Also, some of those creatures, some of those 32 creatures you mentioned, also have spells attached to them because I saw so many Bone Crusher Giants.
It's a good card, man. It's just like it's so nice on curve. It's fine to drop late game if you've got like 5 mana. It's Bone Crusher Giant fits into a lot of the decks right now. So I mean that I guess I would definitely categorize as like a burn spell. But because it's attached to a body that can hold on to a big flamey sword, that's kind of its biggest contribution.
Between the mono red deck and the Teamer Adventures deck, I got much better than I ever have at knowing the names of the spell half of adventure creatures
Yeah.
because I didn't know any of those beforehand, and I was like, "Oh, the Bone Crusher Giant, whatever that's called," and Jeff's like, "Stomp." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, Stomp, right?"
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what like the Brazen Borrower's bounce spell is actually named. I just
Petty Theft.
petty
That's
theft.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
there
petty
you
theft.
go.
Okay, but how about Rimrock Knight? Do you know what that one's called? I don't know that one.
Boulder
Bolt
Rush.
Rush.
Boulder
Yeah.
Rush.
The red
Yeah.
ones I know. It's easy to tell with the Rimrock Knight because the alternate art, like the fancy frames, I can't remember what they're called.
The showcase frame.
The showcase frames. It's literally like the the dwarf running alongside a giant ass like rock. So it's like a little bit easy to tell that it kind of says Boulder Rush right in the art.
Yeah, the one that Matt Sperling knew, Granted, which is the one on Fae of Wishes.
Yeah.
But the one that neither of us knew was the one for Lovestruck Beast, which I had to look up.
Like
just
Lover's Call or something like that.
No, not quite.
Heart's Desire.
Heart's Desire.
Right. I played the FNM. I played instead of getting to play the PTQ or the MagicFest Online qualifier on Friday, I jumped into the FNM event, and so I played a little bit of Golgari Adventures FNM.
Nice.
Cool. Now, I do want to talk about that a little bit, and I know it's weird because, last week,
accidental segue from Nelson got there.
Yeah, last week on the show while we were talking about this, I was like, "Oh, I'll see if Nelson knows what's going on. Like how Yellow Jacket's handling this, the FNM at home thing. Because I'll see what he knows about that." And of course,
Nelson has actually been working at an LGS at all recently.
Yeah, for the reasons that this is even happening. So, yeah, you don't have any sort of insider knowledge there. What, as someone who has worked at an LGS and likely will again when this is over,
fingers crossed.
We hope and assume. What do you think? Because we were sort of like, I don't know what the I don't actually know how this is helping an LGS other than just making more work for them.
Yeah. So certainly the way the promotion works, like with the FNM on Arena, is your LGS can get in contact with probably the WPN rep or someone at the Magic Arena team or someone at WotC, and then the LGS owner will get a bunch of codes that you can then redeem from that. Like you can get a code from your LGS owner when you show them a screenshot of you playing the Magic Arena FNM. But yeah, all that really does for them, like since you're not even going into their store, it's like it does drive traffic to their social media channel. So if your LGS can then turn that traffic into extra sales, great. Ours can't really. We kind of just use our social media to tell people about events. So our social media channel has been pretty dry lately. And yeah, I mean, Ed's just not a huge fan of technology in general. He doesn't want to have to stare at screens and interact with computers more than absolutely necessary on a given day.
Right.
So he's, I'm sure, just not really interested in this promotion. Although if he is doing it, he's probably kind of cursing under his breath, like, "Oh, I gotta get the little pile of codes out again. Gotta find that email. Gotta grumble." He's kind of adorable that way.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, there's probably some LGSs who are like, okay, this is good. At least people are keeping us in their minds. Like that's kind of the best thing I could think about it. If you're like, say you're running like a very large store like Card Kingdom, like they have an FNM, and probably it's nice that there's people, emailing them, and then while they're emailing them, like, oh, look, they're having a sale.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, they probably are. Buy things from Card Kingdom.
Yeah, so I guess it's of varying value depending on how much sort of buy-in to social media already existed on a given LGS.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least it's something, like it'd be nice if Wizards is trying to somehow directly share the big arena bucks. Like, if there was like an affiliate code you could put in for which LGS you shop at when you go to like purchase gems with real money, I would certainly love to type in my store's LGS, code or whatever when I'm doing that, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's looking at giving Arena a bunch more dollars to get more cards and more gems and more wild cards right now.
That's kind of a surprising, like, I agree with you. Like I think, mitigating this to be like a 100% digital sort of thing would have been in the best interests of it without, adding that level. Cause you're right. Like, it just sounds like it's extra work for the LGS, with like minimal return, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, from a player standpoint too, it's like you get a sleeve in exchange for like doing a snip screenshot of your Arena screen and then getting in touch with your store through whatever social media channel is appropriate. And it's kind of like, even as a player, like you kind of need to want those sleeves to go through that inconvenience.
Yeah.
I mean, all I can say, like, at least they're thinking of the LGS, right? Like, at least there was some kind of gesture. I do appreciate that.
I hope that this. I hope that we no longer need to physically distance by the time that Secret Lair Let's Make People Spend Lots of Money in the LGS on fetch lands hits the shelves.
Well, if each store is only getting 10 of them, I imagine that, like, because like our store is currently still open. You can still walk into Yellow Jacket. You just need to wait until, like, the second person in there leaves before you go in or something. Like, I think we're probably doing something like that, or just trying to make sure that if people are staying 6 feet apart in Yellow Jacket, you can have maybe 4 people, but only 2 of them can be buying Magic cards. So, anyways, but
It's a very long store is the problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it only takes a minute to go in and buy some expensive fancy box full of fetch lands. So
That's true.
I'm sure
Yeah.
those will sell. Like, that'll be okay.
So I brought that up as a sort of a side thing because it segued so beautifully. But I did want to talk a little bit more.
You're on
about sort of
fire.
well, thank you. The standard meta in the MagicFest Online, because Ben, obviously you were playing the red deck, and that, well, actually, first of all, because we didn't actually talk about it, how did that go for you?
Good. I mean, so on I did the Tuesday daily qualifier and ended up going 5-1 on a win and in, which was
Woot!
super
Congrats.
sweet. Yeah, it was, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I ended up playing most of the bad matchups for red, and won them. So that was kind of the bigger victory, honestly, for me.
Wow. Way to go.
Yeah, thank you. It was like my last 3 matches were Jeskai Fires and then 2 of the Snack Dose decks. And those are not really great matchups for mono red, specifically the Rakdos one. So like a lot of red decks have started sideboarding a little bit more aggressively against it.
I imagine that that's why the Embereth Shield Breakers are in the board, is just to blow up a witch's oven.
Pretty much, yeah. And then I mean, you have your Tibbers to deal with the life gain sort of situation there. And then you also like it's also running like 3 to 4 copies of Red Cap. Red Cap. Oh god, I always forget the second word of it.
Melee? Red Cap melee?
Yeah, thank you. And then like 4 lava coils or like scorching Dragonfire. I prefer lava coil because it has like the neat interaction with Torbrand where it gets the extra 2 damage, so it can still exile a Kroxa or an Uro or something like that. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I ended up 5-1ing, and then that got me qualified into the weekend event, and I ended up going. I stopped playing when I got my 3rd loss at 3-3. But from what people did the math, and it looked like you could still day 2 if you did go X3.
Yeah, that turned out to be the case.
Yeah, and because there was like tiebreakers and whatnot in this one. So I could have probably grinded it out, but we were also doing Loading Ready Live on that day, and it was like I think when I did that 6th round match, I ended around like maybe like 3:30 or 4, and I was like, okay,
so
yeah,
that was not moving quickly then.
yeah, oh yeah, it was longer, and I mean, my last game was I think I played actually like 2 games against just straight up Azorius control, and those games go really long.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because we saw that red deck, what we saw way more of and obviously you both will have seen the same when you were doing coverage. Well, actually, maybe not. I'm curious. What I saw a lot of when we were doing the thing was we saw the Azorius control, also Bant, like a Bant variant of it. We saw you said it was the what did you call it? The
Snack dose.
snack dose. Yeah, the sacrifice Rakdos deck. It was like it's like Witch's Oven, but now Crocus is in the mix, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And the main ones that we saw show up a lot was some sort of Azorius or Bant control, The Teamer Adventures, though less of that, and Jeskai Fires was the big one.
Yeah, so CFB posted for this weekend the results of like they posted how many decks went 6-0 in the daily qualifiers on their Twitter. And by an overwhelming margin, it was the Jeskai Fires lists. But there were also like a couple interesting lists. I ended up going against it on the weekend. But there's an Azorius Blink deck that's
Ooh.
starting to kind of come around.
I got to cover some of that.
Yeah, it's a really cool deck. Thassa and Charming Prince just kind of like gaining so much incremental value from cards like Elite Guard Mage, and like Deputies of Detention being able to kind of switch the target, is really really neat. I learned the interaction of how messed up Deputy of Detention and Time Wipe is. Because I always thought that it was like it destroys everything and you get your creature back, but because you get to because how the card's written, you get to grab a creature back before the destruction goes. They just take their deputy
Oh
back. The
no!
thing underneath it dies, and now they've got an extra deputy to deal with things. So it's like that interaction's pretty big in that deck.
It used to template things like that, so it would be a trigger, like Fiend Hunter is a trigger when the Fiend Hunter leaves play, the creature comes back in. But they changed it because I think for the reason that they didn't want flicker decks or flicker effects or sacrifice effects to be able to like use these kind of creatures that exile something to permanently exile it. Because you can't do that anymore with Deputy of Detention, but it also means that it's worse with Time Wipe, I guess, or better with Time Wipe.
Yeah, so it was kind of gnarly. But yeah, it was really interesting to see. Like, there's a very good spread, I think, of decks in Standard right now. I mean, the ability to be like, as you know, Graham, you were just saying, like you mentioned in the coverage, like that there was like 5 or 6, 7 different decks that we ended up seeing over the week and the weekend, which I think indicates a fairly healthy Standard.
I agree. And even in the situations where it was like we saw Jeskai Fires matched up against most of those other decks that I mentioned, and at no point was it a like, so obviously Jeskai Fires is favored in this match. Like, granted, as you say, CFB put up the, you know, it ended up going 6-0 in the daily qualifiers the most, but you know, we saw it lose. We saw it lose plenty of games.
Yeah, I mean, Ramp is really well suited to dealing with that deck. A lot of decks have a lot of the Ramp decks have shifted into Sultai to kind of like counteract that. I mean, Bant can deal with it really well too, but like turns out Casualties of War really good against Jeskai Fires when you can be like, all right, I choose the enchantment. It's the fires. I'm gonna pick the Planeswalker. It's your Teferi. I'm gonna pick a creature. It's your Will Kenrith, and I'm gonna, I don't know, take you off of your 3rd blue, so you can't just hard cast a Cavalier of Gales.
Yeah, we got to watch Alias V actually win her winning in on the Tuesday with like that exact thing. It was like, all right, sideboarding, let's bring in all 4 copies of Casualties of War, and it was backbreaking.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's a really really cool, and that's kind of sort of the interesting thing about Standard right now, is everyone, like, I mean, obviously is Azorius Blink is just sort of starting to make an appearance, but I found that a lot of the meta is more so just like it's like a rotating carousel in a way. It's like, okay, so Jeskai Fires is gaining in a lot of popularity. Azorius Control can really deal with that well. Okay, now Azorius Control is so popular. Teamer Adventures is now the top deck because Teamer Adventures has a lot of card advantage and deals with that. And it's like, now Teamer Adventures is doing really well, so now Snackdos is the most popular deck because Snackdos can really take advantage and overwhelm that deck in the early game. And so it's really interesting. Like the Standard meta, while is not like my favorite Standard by any means, it's cool to see that like all the decks sort of have this like tree, I guess, this tree diagram of things they can deal with and things they like, you know, are just kind of rolled over by.
And the matches are pretty good too. Like,
Yeah,
a lot of the matchups are just 45-55%. Like it could go either way in a lot of matchups. We haven't talked about Simic Flash either, and that's an
That's
important
making a
part of this
yeah.
comeback.
metagame right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has a good matchup against Fires of Invention, or that's what it seemed like through coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's just because there's so many blue-green decks, Simic Flash is kind of this sideboard strategy you have if you're on, maybe if you're on Sultai or Teamer, but certainly if you're on like a Simic mid-range, Simic ramp, you can kind of switch your 4 drops out into game 2 and turn your Wilderness Reclamations into Night Pack Ambushers, or you can just kind of have some of the flash cards in main and then have less ramp targets in game 2 and have more spicy Brazen Borrowers.
Yeah, it's tough though, right? I mean, like, I think Simic Flash will always have this kind of tough matchup for as long as Teferi exists. Like, it's just such a backbreaking sort of thing for it to deal with. Um, and like Jeskai Fires is interesting because it's like if they're if the Simic Flash deck is able to stop the fires, then like sweet, then they're in a really good position. But as soon as fires is down, like the fires deck isn't using any mana to cast its spells, and a lot of like the counterplay that Simic Flash ends up running, like the quenches and stuff, and like the mystical disputes, they're happy to pay that, so it's like I think it definitely has like a ton of counterplay to it, but it's like it's still like, yeah, like you were saying, like the 60-40 sort of matchups.
Yeah, I mean, no, maybe I'm wrong too. Like when I was watching our coverage, it was like there was the Simic Flash players were doing well, but you're right. Like both strangely Fires is like a bad card for the Simic Flash deck to have to deal with, just because it makes their if it resolves, it makes their counterspell decisions tough because they probably only can counter one spell a turn. So then the opponent gets to say like, oh well, is this my real spell I'm playing first, or is this the bait spell? Or like I just have 2 Cavaliers, it doesn't matter what you do. And then also Teferi is a must counter, or their deck stops doing anything. So that's a totally fair point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree in general that the standard format is pretty well balanced. It's obviously had some tweaks done to it. Can you imagine how many blue-green decks there would be if you could still play Oko? Like there's
Yeah.
already like there's like 5 blue-green decks, right? You can play a blue-green and splash any of the other 3 colors, or if you're just playing blue-green, you still kind of have 2 different decks you can play, or you can play like a different version of Teamer.
Do you
There's
have
the
like
Teamer
a
Adventures and the Teamer Reclamation. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have like a least favorite and a favorite sort of deck that you've been like seeing, just like not even like to play, but just like to commentate or watch?
I like keep wanting the red deck to be a burn deck. Like I was just trying to make like I built it after we watched a bunch of MTG Nerd Girls run on the night that I was casting with Ali as well, and she was playing in the qualifier while I was casting rather than just streaming
Mhm.
ladder, and so I picked up her deck, and I also today built Ailey's deck, the sweet Command the Dread Horde Sultai one, and I realized that no one's playing Skewer the Critics, as you said, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the deck is just about Embercleave, so I get it, but I sort of miss having a deck that can reach over the table to finish the game, and like you have haste creatures in this red deck, but it's not quite the same as like having incinerates, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm 100% with you. It's like I actually prefer to play like a burn sort of version. I It's tough, right? Because like I think a lot it's people's number one gripe with aggro is that it's just like especially in like the burn sort of ones, it's just the you try to take their life total down in the quickest way possible. And while that is what their current red deck is also trying to do, it it does it more in, I don't know, I want to say fair magic way. Not that like casting lightning bolt to the dome isn't fair magic or anything like that, but it's like we got to turn our creatures sideways just the same as any other deck.
The other thing this metagame's missing is like a mono white deck. Like I don't know if anyone is playing
It tried.
life
I've run
gain
into
creatures with
it.
any success. Yeah.
I've run into, like, every once in a while on the ladder, I'll run into like mono white life gain that's like running your turn one, either like the new enchantment Ailsid, the one drop that like gives creatures pro.
I'll see it of Life's Bounty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one, or you'll turn one into like a healer's hawk, and then you play a Johnny's Chosen, and then you play Heliod. So it's got like a really nice curve, but like it has no sustain. Like it has no card draw or anything in that kind of realm. So it's like why mono red still persists is because of cards like Annex, and Light Up the Stage that are able to still kind of keep you in the game. If the board wipes, because there are a lot of board wipes in Standard right now. You need to be able to kind of counteract that, and I don't feel like the white deck has a way to not just sort of lose the moments your opponent resolves a shelter or a shatter.
Yeah, it's like Shadow the Sky and Storm's Wrath both have their powerful sweepers at 4 mana. And then if you're not in either of those colors, like the Sultai decks, I think they're mostly just interested in one for oneing with your stuff and then playing a big Hydroid Crisis. Like all the blue green decks have the option of just like one for ones and then this big life gain, big flyer. And
Yeah.
that's like kind of the baseline most power or like, minimum powerful thing you have to be able to do to hang in this standard metagame, and that's why I think we see the version of the red deck we have, and why we also aren't seeing too many more aggro decks.
We did see a lot of situations where this whoever it was that was playing against the red deck, it was sort of like, well, if they have Embercleave, there's no. It was one of those things where it's like, I lose to Embercleave no matter how I block.
Yeah.
So I'll block in the way where I hope they don't have it.
Yeah, there's
right? It's
there's
like
a lot of that right now. There's a lot of like if
there's
they have
no
Embercleave, there's no right block. Yeah.
yeah, there's no playing around it. So if you can't play around it, assume they don't have it and make the best blocks you can, and then maybe you lose, or maybe it ends up being an okay block.
Yeah, honestly, right now, what I wish there was is I would rather be playing Gruul aggro over like RDW aggro, because I think Gruul aggro just has so many cooler cards. Like Gruul Spellbreaker is awesome, Questing Beast is super cool, but the biggest problem is the land base just isn't really there. Losing Rootbound Craig was like a really big sort of blow, I think, to the deck, and so just having access to Stomping Ground, and like you can run Temple of Malady, but it's like obviously like the Grilled aggro deck wants to be resolving a creature like a Pelt Collector on turn 1. And so it's just like having any sort of tap lands is just sort of mega detrimental to aggro right now. Like you need to come out super fast on at minimum turn 2. You need to be either resolving a creature or having already like hit them once or twice, because on turn 3 the Bant or any of the ramp decks are going to be casting Uro. Maybe they already cast a Growth Spiral, so they're already at 4 mana and can just shatter, or Storm's Wrath, anything, or maybe they're resolving their Wilderness Reclamation already. So you can't stumble at all at mana. And there was like a period of time too where RDW wasn't even like running multiple copies of Castle Embrith, because it was like there's always that chance of the instance where you have an opener and it's 2 Castle Embriths and you just can't afford to not have like them coming untapped.
Yeah, if you're going to shave down to like towards 20 lands, you want to be cutting those tap lands for sure. There was a mono green Stompy in the trial that I got to cast. I got to cast one game. Unfortunately, they did have to like mulligan twice and then get shattered, and then they were totally dead. But it's a cool archetype, and it did, I think, 6-0 or at least 5-1 one of the qualifiers previously, like on the Monday.
Yeah, mono green's really cool. It has, but
I have to look into that.
It succeeds kind of because like for the reasons that we were talking about with that mono white can't, because it has at least access to the Great Henge.
That's
which
right.
is like right. It's going to provide that card draw, or that in like against a red deck too. I see Great Henge and I'm like crap, because like they're getting so much card draw and they can just for fun tap it for 2 life. Like it has a little bit of that sustainability. And also too, what's cool about the green deck is a lot of those creatures are going to have power 4, so if they get shattered at minimum, they're going to get to draw a card.
Yeah, they're generally drawing a card when they get shattered.
Yeah,
they have like multiple Pelt Collectors. This deck has chosen to play sorry, I've forgotten what it's called, but it's an Eldraine card that cares whether or not you have another non-human creature. And so this is the way it's managed to find like some consistency versus the Gruul aggro deck. I mean, you could probably build a version of it that is Gruul, but it's also playing Yorvo. I can't remember the name of this creature at all. It's like an elf,
It's
1/1 for 1.
Yeah, woodland something, isn't it?
Yeah, and then when it attacks or blocks, if you have another non-human creature gets +1/+1. So
Sick.
that and Pelt Collector are kind of like the 1-drops. I don't know if it has another 1-drop, but it just plays like a whole bunch of big dudes and Great Henge.
That's really cool. Like, and yeah, I mean, monocolor. It's so interesting that we're in Theros right now, and we're seeing very little in the way of anything regarding devotion. You know, like devotion
There's
seems to kind of
Anax.
taken. Yeah, I mean, Anax is the only reason. Sorry, one of the only reasons that the red deck is doing as well as it is. But beyond that, it's like most of the decks that we're seeing in standard are like 3-color, which is pretty interesting to me. Like it doesn't seem like any of the. I mean, I guess we only really saw the devotion on a couple of cards. Like it's not as prevalent as it was obviously in old Theros block.
Yeah, I heard rumblings of a mono black standard deck using Bolas's Citadel and Grey Merchant of Asphodel that was doing.
I heard
Yeah.
rumblings
Any of the
too, but I
format?
never saw it. I heard
What?
rumblings of that too, but I never saw it show up.
Yeah, I haven't run into it.
There's a really cool interaction. I think it was Jeremy White that was talking to me about it because he was actually big on mono black when Theros first dropped, just for like laddering and stuff, where you can have Bolas's Citadel, and then if you're running Woe Strider, you can like sacrifice creatures that you play off of it to like get lands off the top, and just keep going with the Citadel.
Right,
which is-
scrying
which-
becomes extra
yeah.
powerful when you have Bolas's
Oh,
Citadel.
cool.
Yeah.
Wildwood Tracker is the card you were thinking of, Nelson.
Thank you.
Single green mana, 1/1 elf warrior. Whenever it attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Huh. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you jam like, I mentioned Yorvo, and then you've got Questing Beast, and you also have as a 2-drop, it's the Guilds of Ravnica 3/2 bug that has reach and fights a flying creature when it comes into play.
Crawl Harpooner.
Yeah.
Crawl Harpooner, and then you can
Yeah.
still play Thrashing Brontodon if you want to blow up a Fires of Invention.
Thrashing Brontodon's huge right now. There's so
Yeah.
much enchantments and stuff. Also, kills Anax.
Oh, lol, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Thrashing
yeah.
Brontodon's just a kill spell for
Yeah.
all the enchantment creatures from Theros.
Mhm.
That's funny. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So this has been a far deeper dive onto standard than we usually get to do. On
Yeah, this
Tap
is
Tap
weird.
Concede,
This
so
isn't-
was
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the format I play the most, only because it's just so easily accessible.
Yeah,
right
before
now-
Magic Arena, did you play it at all?
Not really. I mean, when I was living in Edmonton, I actually used to go to like game days and stuff like that all the time. And I think it was actually moving here. I showed up for, I want to say it was like game day. It would have been whatever set was when Origins rotated out, because I remember I accidentally kept like Shivan Reef in my list, and they were like, "That's not a card that you can play." And I was like, "Oh shoot, right." So we replaced it with basics, but I think only like
Maybe
maybe
Kaladesh, is that right?
might have been Kaladesh, and it was like maybe 6 or 7 people showed up for game day at YJ, and I was like, "Oh, so standard's not as big of a thing here." And then so I just shifted gears into Commander, but then since Arena's been taken off, it's been fun. Like I said, this isn't my favorite standard meta right now. Like, it's very healthy. I find most of the decks to be kind of boring. Like my favorite deck that I've ever run was like the Fevered Visions Thermo thingy deck.
Oh,
that,
Thermo
like,
Alchemist. Nice.
Yeah, the Thermo Alchemist list, like the counterburn side of thing. That was a lot of fun. Which I guess is kind of like what Simic Flash could sort of be. So maybe I'm just playing the wrong decks. But I think Arena's been super cool, and this whole sort of thing has been very helpful from like a meta perspective too, where it's like, if you're not getting to go and play Magic face to face with people, at least you're sort of getting that feel of like being at a Magic Fest in like a tournament with like the Swiss structure, and like people are talking in between rounds and like the Discord and stuff like that. It was neat.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that will actually take us handily to the end of this episode of Tap Tap Concede. This has been a super fun talk. Thanks, both of you.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah.
I love being on this with you guys.
Heck yeah. A reminder to those of you listening that the show is brought to you by cardkingdom.com. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. And of course, by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We'll be back next week with more stuff. Who knows what we're talking about? We never do. because that would require prior planning, and everything's weird right now. So until then, I've been Graham.
I've been Nelson.
I'll probably still be Ben.
And this has been Tap Tap Concede.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.